Welcome to Threads of Enlightenment, a podcast devoted to helping you overcome challenges in your life that prevent you from becoming the best version of yourself. Each episode features interviews with people from all walks of life about their journey of self-development and the principles they utilize to overcome their fears to achieve their desired outcome. Ready to be enlightened? Here's your host, Ken Primus.
Welcome to another episode of Threads of Enlightenment. As usual, guys, you know my custom. And that custom is to welcome our guests because I know they're coming with a couple of things I deem very expensive: time. What a precious commodity that has been offered to all of us. And that 24 hours, we learn how to respect it. And if you don't, I want to invite you guys to learn how to honor and cherish time. It really, truly, once you have an insight into how to honor time, it'll change your life. The other is the journey. The journey is a powerful creator, and it has created Jen, and she is here to share both of these precious commodity with us. And we want to honor her for coming and sharing them with us. And we are so blessed because she is also bringing a couple of things that she has learned through those journeys. Wisdom, honor, as she's learned about insight. She's got some stuff that we want to have access to. And so why are we wanting access to that stuff? Because it's going to make you and I better human spirits while we're here on this planet. Jen, thank you so much for coming to Threads of Enlightenment.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
It's an honor. Thank you so much. One of the questions that I always ask on the onset of the podcast is to scare everyone. No, is to kind of put this together is, as I mentioned to you, I believe that we have two journeys in life, and that is the individual and the interdependent, that of a servant. How do you serve mankind?
I'm here to help women sort of unravel some of sort of the conditioning and beliefs that we get from society around us that prevent women from living lives that are full of pleasure. And I really believe that pleasure is directly related to how powerful we are in our personal lives and in how we serve. So helping women step into their power so that they can be the servants that they are meant to be in this world. They can live the life that they are meant to live. I mean, more pleasure and orgasms makes the world a better place, in my opinion.
I think so. In any case, in every case, I think as in history, there is always this tabooness around one exploring themselves and getting to know who they are sexually, especially the female body, the ones that are hosting in that female body. They allow the male to do any and explore all kinds of stuff, but the female, there's so much restrictions from the beginning of time on the female. So as a female and one that has been assigned to do this, I want to go back at one of our customs because I love your assignment and we're going to get deeper into it. One of our customs is to go back into the beginnings of the beginnings, if you will, Jen. And the beginnings, one of the first spaces that we visit when we come into this planet is our family unit. And we're going to walk all the way back to today. And that first space in your family, we usually reside there for a couple of years. And then as we begin to walk our way into our adulthood, if you will, our independence. What was your first stage like, your family unit like?
Oh, I had a fantastic childhood. Yeah. I have an older brother, so it was just me and my brother and both of my parents who are still together, happily married, just sleeping across the hall, actually. I've probably woken them up, actually. But I was definitely, I think one of the things that sums it up is one of my best friends and I have numerous conversations about who we are, where we're going in life, what we're doing, our decisions, and what have you. And one thing she has said to me over and over again that I think sums up my childhood is, she looks at me and says, you are safe in the world. You've always felt safe in the world in a way that I just haven't had access to. And when she first said that to me, I kind of sat there and I went, whoa, like that's a huge statement. But it really landed and it felt really true, and sometimes our friends give us this insight that we don't ourselves see in our life because we're too close to it. But I think that's sort of the biggest thing in my childhood. I had a great childhood. I've always felt very safe. I've always felt protected and taken care of by my parents, and that they've always had my back. So I think that's been a big impact in how I've grown, because I do feel very safe in the world. And I realize that is a massive, massive gift that not everybody gets from their family unit.
Yeah, that is awesome. And feeling that safety that you had received from your mom and dad, how did you relate to others from that space?
I think, sometimes my mom looks at me sideways when I tell her I'm doing my next crazy adventure. And she's like, she asks all these questions about, is it safe, is one of the things she always asks. Is it safe? Like, is there corruption? Like, no, is anybody going to attack you? And I'm like, I get so frustrated. I'm like, it's going to be fine. And that really is how I go through life in a lot of ways. And I realize that there are probably people listening who are like, what do you mean? Like, how do you do that? And I have just always had that. Like, I feel safe going out into the world. I feel safe venturing into unknown spaces, going to different countries, traveling as much as I can. And just, I love going out and talking to and meeting new people. And I've always felt safe to do that. Like, I've never felt that anything bad is going to happen to me or that some people are going to judge me. So I think that's been one of the driving forces, that safety in being able to relate to people on such sort of a positive basis.
Was that always part of your being, even in high school? Let's say in high school, was that a part of your lifestyle, if you will?
Feeling that safety always was, but I think I came into it. More as an adult. When I was in junior high and high school, like, I definitely had a little bit more shyness. I was definitely a little bit more reserved. I definitely didn't have the confidence and self-worth that I do now. So certainly there was more sort of like being small in junior high and high school. But as I grew into adulthood, I sort of really came to realize that it's a skill of mine to talk to people and relate to people. So it's evolved over time. It's grown out of a little bit of shyness and into more confidence, for sure.
And when you are heading into leaving the nest, if you will, and you're heading towards your own independence, as far as college and heading into your school time, what school did you pick as far as your field of study, and why did you pick that field of study?
Sorry, I feel a sneeze brewing, and I'm trying to
That's okay.
not
It's
sneeze into the microphone. I think
being
I'm good.
human is a part of it all.
I got a degree in education, and I lived at home while I got that degree, and that was a safe choice, but not in the positive way. It was safe in the playing small way.
Mm-hmm.
And so the very first thing I did as soon as I got that degree, I think I graduated in April, and in July I was on a plane to Japan.
Why Japan, Jen? Why?
I had applied
How
to a
did
program
Japan come about?
I had applied to a program to teach there. Because I wanted to get out of the nest. I wanted to get far away. I wanted to explore the world, and teaching felt a little bit too comfortable and settled.
Mm-hmm.
But I have this degree. Like, what am I going to do with it? It made natural sense to me that I would go teach somewhere other than my home country and use that degree as a way to explore the world and see other cultures and meet people who were different from me. Yeah, that was.
Why not Mexico? How did the Japan piece come about?
It was there was a program that I applied
Mm-hmm.
to that was based in Japan, a specific teaching program. So I think I applied to somewhere in New Zealand as well.
Mm-hmm.
But I got the Japan job, and so immediately took that.
All right, here you are, and you got your degree, and you applied to Japan. And I assume you don't know much Japanese, or do you know Japanese? Were you studying Japanese at the time when you got there? How did that happen?
When I got there, I had no Japanese at all. I studied while I was there, and I've continued to study off and on over the years. At this point in my life, I have conversational Japanese, and I was just in Japan. I just got back to Canada about a month ago, so I go back as often as I can. It has my heart, for sure.
I'm heading there in March, actually.
Are you? Nice.
Yeah.
Have you been before?
No, first time. My son lives there, he and his wife. And so they live up in the mountains, and they have an NGO that they had started rehabbing old homes. And so I'm going out there and hang out with them for several months.
7 months. You will have an amazing time. I'm
Yeah, I'm looking
jealous.
forward to it.
Nice. Nice.
So here you are going to Japan. You got there. The cultural shock. Talk to us, because I'm sure you have to make some adjustments as far as the culture piece of it. I mean, it is much different than Canada. And how did you assimilate into that aspect of the culture once you arrived in Japan?
You know, when I look back on it, I'm sort of astonished because there were so many big changes that went about with this that Japanese culture was probably the least shocking in a sense.
Yeah.
I was living on my own for the very first time. I was 22 years old, living on my own for the first time. So that was like super exciting. I remember I had a glass of wine with my dinner for the first time at home by myself. And I was like, I'm a real adult now. Working my first job, I had a teaching job there, and I was working in a junior high. So that was new. It's like, this is what I've spent 4 years studying for. And then, of course, you're in a foreign country where you can't speak the language. So it was this, I want to say perfect storm, but it didn't have the negative connotations of a storm. It was just this like really exciting, wonderful time. And I've always found Japanese people to be incredibly kind. So I was welcomed into the school, and there was a large community of us that were from various different English speaking countries. So there was kind of some built in friendships from the start.
Mm-hmm.
So I had bouts of homesickness for sure. But I don't remember the culture shock being this massive, massive thing. It was, and I don't know that I've ever had culture shock whenever I go anywhere else. Like I said, I did a year in Mexico. I'm considering going to Cambodia next. Did Thailand for 3 months. And it's never been what people would, I think, call culture shock. I land somewhere new and I'm just so alive. It's like, when can I go out and explore and see what this is about?
Yeah.
So it's more of a culture excitement to sort of see how I connect with people in this new place.
Yeah, I love culture and the newness of it. And from the food to the conversation to the scenery, everything I love. I've been traveling for several years now, and so I don't think I will ever stop. It's just an excitement about it that is unexplainable unless someone is doing it. You just can't explain it. As you're doing it, how long did you stay in Japan? And after that, where did you go?
I was in Japan for 3 years. And then I came back to my hometown in Canada and really settled into, I got a permanent teaching position in the city I was living in. And I just settled into the life that I think was expected of me. It wasn't,
Mm-hmm.
in hindsight, it wasn't the life I wanted. It wasn't the life I meant to have. So there was that reverse culture shock, reverse excitement, maybe, to come back to my hometown after 3 years. And 22 to 25, I was in Japan. So that's like a really important time with your friends, right? So to come back to all my university friends, and it's like, okay, everybody's settled into their job here, and I'm just starting teaching here. So it felt a little bit behind in some ways, but I settled into this teaching job, and shortly after I got married, I bought a place, and it wasn't that long that I realized that I've made all the wrong choices in my life, and I was miserable because this was not the life I was supposed to live, and this is not how I was meant to serve as a teacher. And that was a real challenge to explain to other people, because from the outside looking in, right, I had a permanent teaching position. I had actually just built a house. I was married. I was about to start having kids. And it was like, your life is perfect. You should be settled. And I was in a very, very dark place. I wouldn't say I was suicidal. My thoughts were definitely dark enough that it was veering that way. And I would wake up every morning. My first thought was, I hate my life.
Wow.
I don't know if we can swear on your podcast, but there's definitely some swear words in that phrase in my brain, how I thought about it, because the feeling was so intense. That was my first thought in the morning and my last thought at night, how much I hated my life. And then it just got to critical mass. Like, I was like, I can't keep doing this anymore.
And
And
where
that
did
was
you think
only,
it got there?
I'm sorry?
Let me ask, Jen, because as you said, from the outside and the program that we have been all programmed and told, everything was perfect. I mean, you did everything according to what the program states.
Yeah.
You went to school, you got your degree, you did a little excursion as far as you went out. Most people would have gone and done, did their job, whatever. But you stepped out. You were a little adventurous. You stepped out of, and which was fine. But you came back into the program, and you got married. You build a house. I mean, you're in the program, Jen. You're doing fine. Why would you be unhappy? And what was causing that unhappiness while you were absolutely in top of your game, if you will?
Yeah. I think about this. I think about this over and over again. One of the things that I've started to use to describe myself is I've always been a seeker, and I've often not known what I've been looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And in hindsight, it might just be, what you refer to as the program, knowing that this isn't my program. And I've gradually come to the realization that none of that life, none of that, the teaching job, there are great moments in teaching for sure, but none of that was that didn't come from me. That came from outside, right? From what other people think you're supposed to do, what life should look like, what should make you feel happy, what looks like success. But it doesn't, if that's not your definition of happiness and success, like
Mm-hmm.
if it doesn't come from inside of you, you're not going to be happy. It's almost impossible. Like, how can you be happy living in conditions that you didn't choose with an open heart? And that's where I was, right? I was like, oh, and I was just like, I was a little bit angry about it too. It's like, these are the things these are the things a good girl is supposed to do. And I did them all. And I remember very vividly being, this can't be it. This is not it. I know there's more for me. I don't know what it is that I'm supposed to do at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what this more is, but I know that there is more. And there was something inside of me that I couldn't ignore. I'm like, I just can't stay here. I can't stay here. I will die. I will, it will be like a spiritual death if I stay here. It's like, and I just gotta go.
Yeah. And when that gotta go, what did that look like, and where did you go, Jen? What did you do to begin to answer that question and begin to deal with that feeling of, this is not the place I need to be?
I went back to a childhood dream. I always wanted to perform and be an actor when I was young.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up on the Canadian prairies, so I moved from there to Vancouver, where we have a pretty thriving film industry. And I worked in film, not as an actor, not as a performer. It was definitely behind the scenes in production. And I did that for 14 years or so before I began to feel the next pull toward the next thing I was seeking.
Yeah.
But Vancouver was great because it was an industry I was always interested in, the film industry. I have really great memories, made a lot of great friendships, and I do miss it at some points. Because it was the next province over, it was like a 12 hours drive or, 90-minute flight. So I think that space from my parents, because for a while I was living like literally 5-minute walk from their house. So it almost felt like I needed to like start my adulthood over again. It's like, I don't want to live in the same city as them anymore. I need to move away. I want to work in the film industry. Vancouver is beautiful. And as I was putting this move together and packing up my house and had to sell the house and leave my teaching career, I had that excitement again. I was like, okay, I get to do all of these new things and have these new experiences in this new city and meet new people. And I was just bursting with excitement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And once you got there, how did it land? As you said, you were bursting with excitement. How did it land when you got there and you began to settle in, if you will? How did it turn out as far as your life?
It was easy. It was so easy. It was almost like I was in a flow state. Like,
yeah.
everything just lined up. I had a friend here in my hometown who I told this to, and she's like, oh, I know somebody in the film industry. So I landed in January. I landed in July.
Mm-hmm.
Started working a few weeks after that and never stopped working. Like,
Wow.
the career sorted itself out. Film can be sometimes hard to break into because it's, creative film and a creative field, and it's short-term projects.
Yeah.
Once you're done a show, it's like, what's next? But I've
Mm-hmm.
always worked the whole thing. I bought a place there, which was amazing, and I just feel like I dropped in. I was like, this is where I'm supposed to be right now, and it was super easy.
Yeah, one of the things, Jen, that people fail to do is to take the chance to do what they feel. They're afraid. Fearfulness is one of the things that keeps you from getting or chasing your dreams, if you will. People are just afraid. They're comfortable, comfort where they're at. Yeah, and I tell people complacency is a dream killer. It kills dreams daily. Millions of people have become complacent. I believe that COVID came about to shake people out of their complacency. And a lot of people gave birth to businesses and all kinds of books and all kinds of things as a result of COVID, because people were in this complacent behavior because of the job, if you will. And when the job was taken away, it shook people up and they began to look inward and began to step out of that complacency and gave birth to many millions of things that were residing within them.
Yeah.
All kinds of things have shifted because of that movement. So it is listening to your story. You move beyond that complacency. You could have stayed there, but as you stated, it was killing you. Complacency will kill you. And uh, you have to take the jump. And when you take the jump, it's amazing what's waiting for you. That's why I asked the question, how did you begin to assimilate? And it was seamless. Sometimes it is very seamless. Sometimes it takes a little movement, but the law of friction takes place. And once the movement kicks in, you begin to move.
Mm-hmm.
But complacency is worse. Stagnation is worse than just sitting, not doing anything. So I'm so glad that you spoke to that part in your journey.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting is, now that I'm sort of on to the next phase,
Yeah.
starting a career as a pleasure and orgasm coach, it has not been as seamless. It has not been as easy. But I think what's interesting in that is that with the release of the film job, so now as a coach, I'm working for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel in some ways like another layer has been shed because I was really great at my job in film. And I've caught myself, it's like, oh, I don't have that anymore. And it's like, who am I in the
Yeah.
absence of a career? Like, we so
Yes.
often when we meet people, we're like, oh, it's the first question we ask after their name is, what do you,
What do you do?
right? And so sometimes I think our job or our career can become our identity in a way.
It is. Yep.
And now that I've moved into this, like, I almost said hope final phase. I'm like, this is not going to be the final phase of my life. I know that already. It's like there's been a new exploration of like, okay, who am I as I build this business? Because now it has to be all me, right? Like there's no rules in how I build this business, right? Like I don't have to
Mm-hmm.
clock in, clock out. So the business of, building this coaching business has been its own spiritual journey and its own sort of vehicle for transformation that I didn't think was possible, or I didn't think would happen. That, building a business is also happening parallel to a spiritual journey, and they've started to intertwine, and I cannot separate sort of the spiritual element out of what I do as a coach and how I build the business. So that's been an interesting transition too.
Yeah, the spiritual journey will always lead you to entrepreneurship. Always.
Yeah.
Because you can't, it's two different worlds. You can't, it's two different worlds. It always leads you to, and it's just two different worlds. And your gift will always cause you to disconnect from the current world system. The current world system is designed for you to do a job. And you and I are not called here to do a job. We're called here to do our assignment. And I always use this as an example. I grew up in the church, and I use this example because it's a perfect example. So we have we have Jesus Christ walking, and these fishermen are doing their job, Peter, and they're fishing, and that's their job, fishermen. And he's walking, and he says to them, "Hey guys, follow me, and I'll make you fishers of men." So these guys are doing their jobs, and he says, "Follow me, and I will help you to locate, and I'm going to teach you about your assignment." And they jump off of their jobs and follow this guy, and he taught them how to do their assignment. They came on this planet to be fisher of men, not fishermen. And so there's a degree of faith to do your assignment. You have to walk away from your job.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah. You can't stay in your job because the job identity is tied into our job, but our identity should be tied into our assignment. And so
Yeah.
the assignment is ever evolving because we are ever evolving. This is just the beginning. And so when we are tied into the assignment, because the assignment will always be ever evolving, we will never get depressed when our assignment changes.
We will never get, what? When it changes?
We'll never get depressed.
Yes.
But we will be depressed when we lose our job.
Yeah.
Because we tied into that. We think our identity is in the job. But we will never, ever get depressed when our assignment is constantly moving, because it's formulating and we understand that this is my assignment. It's actually morphing, it's changing all the time. And so we know this. And so we are grateful, and we're in a state of grateful and thankfulness. And it keeps us motivated and gets us excited. But I guarantee you our job is depressed. We're depressed until another job shows up, and everyone, and 90% of the people are walking and identified with it, don't understand that that's not it. We are called on this planet to locate our assignment, whatever that is, and hook into that assignment. And the assignment is designed, Jen, to sustain you and I. Don't give up. It's designed for that. The lie that they tell people is that it is not, to keep you and I in the job. You can't make it doing that, they'll say. You can't you can't provide for yourself. You can't make it. And then I've heard all of that. That's not true. And there's proof that that's not true. Talk to many millions of people out there that it's not true. But you have to walk that walk of faith and surrender. Just like you surrendered before, and you surrendered and you sold everything. It's the same principle. But it looks difficult because you have really truly stepped into your assignment. Don't move.
Yeah.
Don't move.
Yeah. I think.
So talk to me.
I think you're right in that we get so caught up in what we think we're supposed to be doing, and we forget what we're called to do, I think.
How did you find your assignment, Jen? Because you're working, because in the field of film and all of that, you're doing your work. And then you stumble on your assignment, because not many people are doing what you're doing. And that is an assignment, because women are burdened with the idea that their body and their expression of self within their body is deemed taboo, and they shouldn't do that. And so here you are with an assignment to do that. How did that shift take place?
So when I moved to Vancouver, I felt that there was this opening up to explore sexually, because I was no longer married. My parents didn't live, just down the block. And I knew that there was something like I knew there was something around sexuality for me that
Mhm.
I was supposed to experience or explore. So I kind of just, I mean, and it was fun, right? I was like, I'm going to explore everything about sex and relationships. So I tried all kinds of things and, had some really amazing partners along the way. And I found that our sexuality is a place where we cannot hide. I mean, people do, but if you're hiding in your sexuality and you're not freely expressing who you are sexually with your partner, with yourself, I think it's really deeply, it's soul killing, right? Because our sex is meant for us to connect with each other. I think that's fundamentally what it's for. It's not something created only for marriage. It's not, like it's for us to connect with each other. And in sexuality, it's such a powerful vehicle for transformation. You can have, I mean, spiritual orgasms. I've had some spiritual orgasms where I get like an instant download of insight. And I just slowly over time, as I began this exploration, because I felt called to explore my sexuality, it became clearer and clearer and clearer to me. And this sort of developed over the years, but I came to realize that I think our sexuality is almost like a really pure form of power. Like if you control people's sexuality, and women have been, victims of sexual repression for millennia.
Yeah.
A person is not truly free if they cannot live the sex life that they want. And there's power in reconnecting with your sexuality and reconnecting with your pleasure. So that belief sort of grew out of time through my own experiences. And then really, I mean, I've always, well, even while in film, there was always this like, I want to do something with sexuality. Like, there's work for me to do here in some way. But again, I wasn't sure what that was, what that looked like. But as I continued to sort of explore, it just got to this critical mass where it was time for me to make a change again. It's like, okay, I have to do this work. Like, I almost feel like I owe it to the universe to do
Yeah.
this work and to be a place where women can come and we can talk about their sex life and we can unwind their personal conditioning and look at their own personal resistances and blocks are in place that is preventing them from stepping forward into their most powerful, blissful life.
And for all the ladies that are listening to us, and I know that I look at the stats that I see, and I know many of you do. Here is an individual, and those of you that are in that space where you are suffering from that type of belief about yourself, here is someone that you have access, that you can get in touch. We're going to provide all of her information so that you can get in touch with her, so that you can have someone that you can talk to and gain insight from as to how you can walk yourself through and become more in tune with who you are from a sexual point of view. And once you get in touch with who you are, guys, from that, because there's something holding you back. And once you locate that freedom, you shall know the truth, and the truth will set you free. Once you are free and from that arena and your sexual part of you, you'll be free in any part of your life. From there, you will not hold back, if you will. If you allow yourself to really express yourself, you will be free. And the playground of the mind, as they say. And because sexuality and all of that is a part of your mind as well. And if you learn how to be free there, you will. And I tell people it's an expression, sexuality and all the different things is an expression of what you have here. You're expressing it with your physical body. And so once you free your mind and whatever belief you have there, you will enjoy your life. So here you are now, decided to take on your assignment, and you have afforded yourself the opportunity to be obedient. Talk to us invite us to one of those opportunities, one of the women that are listening to us, so that they can get a glimpse of uh, how you have helped someone that was struggling before, and then after a session with you, they were able to obtain their freedom. I know what it did for you, and how when we are privy to something like that, and I also know what it does for that individual. Once they obtain their freedom, they're so grateful. Life becomes, oh my God. Invite us to one of those type of session, and what happened to that individual, and how did you escort them from that dark perspective to that new perspective once you guided them through?
Yeah, one of my two clients come to mind. The first is more, she had a very specific sexual goal. She orgasmed easily by herself, but not with a partner. So we spent sort of a lot of time just unwinding, like, and this is a common complaint women have. It's easy by myself, hard with a partner. So we did a lot of unwinding, like, what is happening? What is the difference between you pleasuring yourself and a person being in the room? That almost takes away that freedom to get to a space where you're comfortable enough, relaxed enough, vulnerable enough, and in pleasure that you can have that orgasm. Like, what is in the way of doing that with another person? So, and we follow that person's individual story, right? So it's going to be different for everybody because we all have different conditioning. But with her, we just sort of unwound lots of things. There were things in her childhood, there were things in past relationships. And I think one of the biggest things that a coach can provide is just a different perspective, right? So
Yeah.
we would be, talking about her experiences, and I would ask a question and she would kind of like be taken aback, like she had never thought of it in that way. So she was able to sort of start looking at her behaviors, her conditioned behaviors, in a different way. And I think we just had 5 sessions, and she emailed me and she's like, Jen, like, she's like, you can, and she gave permission. She's like, you can tell anybody. She's like, you can tell your listeners, you can tell your clients. She said her gap, she said she's not quite there, but after 5 sessions with me, she's like, I'm 80% closer to having this experience that I want of orgasming with a partner. And so that, of course, lit up my heart. I was like, yes, I want everybody to have the orgasms and pleasure that they desire. So it's kind of, in her case, it was just an unwinding of what's in the way. And my other really great client, her desires were less sort of strictly sexuality based. Hers was more sort of just this, like, I don't know if I like this partnership, like just a more generalized sort of discontent, and she wanted to be sort of more confident. And we did all kinds of work. One of my favorite sessions with her was I'm just filtering here because of course I want to maintain her privacy. We did some spiritual work, which was sort of, I think she wasn't aware, I think was her biggest block. She had this idea that as a woman, she could only ascend to a certain level and you can never live there. And then you come back down. And I was like, but if you've reached it once, you can reach it again.
Yeah.
Most of us can't live at this high level of, I don't know what you want to call it. I think she called it like transcendence. Like most of us can't live there permanently because it's almost out of this world. I'm like, but you can go there and you can experience that over and over and over again. So we unwound for her. The blocks was, why do you think you're not worthy of being in that space, of taking up that spiritual space, of having that spiritual connection with, I believe she called it God, that spiritual connection with God? Why do you think you can't have that personal relationship over and over and over again anytime you want it? And in a lot of the sessions with her, I would hang up our Zoom and I would be like, I can't believe I got paid for this. Like, I got to witness her downloads from the divine. And it was, and that's why I do this work. Like, I hang up and, I'm witnessing people's transformation. And sometimes I get a little bit of the download too. And I just hang up and like am vibrating off of, this powerful energy that I was able to co-create with another human being. And it's just amazing. And I've had those moments too. Like, I get coached as much as I can as well. And I think that's vital to continue growth. And I've had my own moments of being guided. And I think sometimes that's the biggest thing in coaching is that I think a good coach can guide you down the right path, but an extraordinary coach is like a mirror and a reflection of your experience, of your transformation. So I've been blessed to be able to do that for others. And I've also received it from other coaches. And it's just an amazing transformative experience. And it's available. it's out there, right? Anybody
Yeah.
can book a coach and begin their own journey. And the rewards are just immense.
That's awesome. For all of you guys that are listening, again, we're going to provide everything so you guys have access to Jen so that you can move through and begin to experience what she's talking about and change your life, man. You ought to experience that, and you should. And so, again, we're going to provide all of her info. Jen, thank you so much for coming and spending time with us here at Threads of Enlightenment. This was a very good one. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me.
It was an honor.
Beautiful.
Thanks for tuning in to Threads of Enlightenment with Ken Primus. Hopefully you're now feeling more empowered to overcome the challenges in your life, whatever they may be. Share that inspiration with others by telling them about this podcast, rating it, and of course, remember to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. For more connection, you can find us on Facebook and Instagram by searching for Threads of Enlightenment. Until next time, stay enlightened.